officially welcome to our next Industry Riser event. We're super excited to have you and guest.
Super excited to be here.
Tyler Flatmoe.
Yeah.
So for those who are watching this that don't know who you are, you and I go back quite a few years, but for those listening who don't know you, give us a little sneak peek on who Tyler Flatmoe is.
Yeah, so I'm not very good at being self-proclaimed, but I'll give it a crack here. So my name's Tyler Flatmoe. I am an independent insurance broker. I own an independent insurance agency down in Burnsville. We're
Best city in the Twin Cities, obviously.
Obviously.
Not biased, but it's the best.
I mean, I did move out of Burnsville just a couple years ago, but it's all good. Yeah, I got into the industry 6.5 years ago.
Is that like roughly, it's like 2019? I was trying to remember exactly when, because it was pretty similar to when I got into real estate.
It was similar to kind of when you got into real estate. I kind of tripped and fell into insurance at the same time. I went to school to be a worship pastor. I was in a pastoral role right out of college, making a humble 30 grand a year, just absolutely starving to death. It was great. I got married at 21, immediately got my wife pregnant, and then in the midst of all of that, we were trying to buy a house, and it was just a whole chaotic mess of trying to figure out what was going on. And so up and quit my job at the church and was like, okay, I got to provide. And so I literally started cold calling businesses and accidentally called an insurance agent.
No kidding.
Here we are.
I actually knew that.
Yeah.
That was part of my question is like, how did you end up eventually getting into insurance? But we'll get there.
Okay.
All right. So, so just to set the stage a little bit, the goal of these are to move all of us in the direction towards freedom. That's the thing that we are chasing after, that we care the most about. And we're doing that through chatting with experts like yourself in their industry. You've done a lot in the last 6.5 years.
Yes.
And so through having great conversations with people like you, having authentic conversations about what's working in business and life, those are the ways that we think we'll slowly kind of get there. So
I love it.
We're excited to have you.
Thanks, man.
Before we begin, we kick things off with a would you rather question. So
Perfect.
just keep you
I'm
hot
ready.
on your toes.
I'm ready.
It may or may not be specific to you, but Chris, why don't you give us a little sneak peek of what we're working with today? We need to know why.
Yeah. So
ready.
the why is very important.
Why is important.
The would you rather is, would you rather give up your phone or have to wear Crocs the rest of your life? They cannot come off.
They're not coming off the feet.
Yep.
How long would I have to give my phone for?
It's perpetual.
Perpetual indefinitely.
You're moving forward in life.
But Crocs stay on like in bed. They stay on when you're showering.
They do not.
Okay, so I would rather give up my phone. I think maybe most people would rather wear Crocs. I wear Crocs. I wear Crocs around the farm. They're my buddies joke that they're steel-toed Crocs. They're what I build all things in. So any of my construction projects, I got Crocs on.
Sport mode, obviously. You go
obviously sport mode.
If you're on the farm.
Yeah, you gotta flip that sucker back and make sure you don't fall off the ladder.
What is the Croc? Do you have one pair of Crocs? Do you have multiple pairs?
No, so the thing about Crocs is if you leave them in the sunshine, they shrink. Like half the size. I'm not even kidding.
No way.
So you put Crocs on and they're great, and then you like leave them outside because they're dirty or whatever. And I literally went outside and my size 12 Croc ends up this big.
Size 9.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
So
you had some serious sun on the farm.
Do have some serious sun on the farm.
Coming off the silo.
Yes, that's right. Coming down.
You put them right next to the silo.
That's right. Toast. Absolutely.
Wow. Wow. Give up the cell phone.
Give up cell phone.
No problem. Can't give up the Crocs.
Let's just throw the cell phone away. It eats too much time.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't think I give my phone up.
Be very hard.
I like the Croc, I think. I like the Croc.
Yeah?
But
just not coming off would be tough.
I think Croc is eventually getting a dress shoe Croc. It's going to become a dress shoe. They're going to come out with
very versatile.
They're coming.
It's a whole thing.
Crocs on a new level.
Yep.
All right. So let's do a little 30,000-foot view. You go to school to be a worship pastor.
Yep.
You get married. You guys get pregnant. You guys start making some cash instead.
Yes.
You're cold calling businesses.
Yep.
Everything splattered. You're just going after.
No, I literally just like opened up Google Maps and was like, okay, I'm right here. And it was like I was working at a church. The next door building was a State Farm agent, and I called him up and I was like, hey, my name's Tyler, I want to work for you. And he's like, great, come to my office tomorrow.
Wow.
Like that's literally how the conversation went.
That is crazy.
And so, I worked for him for 1.5 years and then jumped ship and started an independent agency. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you were at State Farm for, you said like a year and a
half? Yeah,
half,
it was like
roughly?
18 months. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And why make the decision to continue scaling within insurance?
Yeah.
You liked it, you liked the people, the
So
scalability?
it took me like a month to realize that this is the workforce's greatest guarded secret, in my opinion. It's infinitely scalable, it's legally mandated, and it becomes a passive income, just ball, because the way in which the business is set up is that we make commissions based off of the policies that we sell, but the difference between like real estate or lending or other kind of commission-based business models is that typically it's a one-off commission, right? You get a nice big check when you sell a house or when you close a loan or whatever the deal is. And in our business, we get a nice small check year after year after year after year after year. And so the joke in our industry is that if you go into insurance, you're going to starve for the first 5 years of your career, and then you're going to get overpaid and underworked for the rest of it. And so it isn't a joke that you starve for the first couple of years. I mean, really, truly, very humble in the beginning. But the scalability when you get the engine going, it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you uncover that at your time at State Farm, where you kind of got in, you saw this is the tip of the iceberg, you can go a lot deeper?
Yep. So I was very blessed with the agent I was working for at the time. Just kind of, he's an old dog. I mean, like, had been in the business 40 years, very successful. And he took me kind of behind the veil. He's like, this is how the business works. This is how the numbers work. This is how I was in hiring conversations and firing conversations, and like, this is how we're going to pay this person type of conversation. And I mean, just gave me, as a whatever I would have been at the time, 23-year-old kid, exposure that I would have never ever had. And granted, when we started the agency, like, you still have to cut your teeth on so many, like, well, that sucked, or I got to figure out how to do that. But there was just there was a lot that was kind of shown to me as like, hey, there's a big path forward here.
Yeah, that's a pretty rare thing to find. Like, the fact that he kind of reinvested into you.
For sure.
You know, I'm sure he had intentions of you taking over his business.
Yeah, and so it's so interesting, because this is where it just like blows my mind that the kind of provision that was in that situation was that he was the one that told me, like, hey, you should quit. Like, you should quit this model and you should go independent.
He's the one who told you that.
He's the one that kind of said, hey, like,
crazy.
I was all teed up within their ecosystem to take on an agency. That it was done. I had the interview all set up, and it was such that, they said we had an opportunity to interface with another agent, and we got done with that meeting, and he was just like,
don't do it.
Don't do it. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I was like, I don't want this at all. And so made the hard choice to go out and do it myself. But
sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I've always thought, like, finding the right person to follow is probably one of the most tried and true principles to scaling in business and in life. There's a lot that I owe to some really early people in my career that I think, had those people not been involved, I could have had a very different path forward. And I'm sure, Chris, you've kind of felt the same way and seen a lot, but it's another good testament. Like, you kind of got hooked into a great agent who was able to provide you tons of business insights, and pull you behind the curtain, like you said. And then that was then the launching pad to doing what you're doing, now.
Absolutely. And it's the sort of thing too that, like, as you look for inspiration in life, like, sometimes it comes through the form of mentors and other people that can come along directly beside you or before you or whatever it is. But it also comes in the form of just like bettering yourself and educating yourself, and books and podcasts and calling other agents and just buying them lunch just to see, like, what do they do? Like, does it, like, what was rocking, what's not working, like, how do you do what you do, right? And even parallel industries, like, not even, I've gained so much in part of the way in which we scaled, and we scaled successfully and quickly, was networking, was working with wonderful realtors and lenders and financial planners and the whole thing. I've learned so much just in sitting across the table from somebody in a parallel industry to say, like, how are you successful?
Totally.
And then you're just taking notes and trying to implement. And
The statement like, getting nose to nose, toes to toes with people. Yes. I mean, great relationships will always trump, most other business activities, right?
Yep.
The right people, the right networking, the right conversations. That was something, I did relatively early as well, just try to connect with as many people as possible. Yes. I'm always surprised how far down the road things eventually get before all of a sudden something happens and you're like, that was totally worth it, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you never know what comes out of, those relationships, those conversations. Like, I took that coffee meeting having no idea that was going to be worth anything, which is actually the hilarious connection between you and I.
Right.
This is like a flash. When would that have been? 2015?
Are you talking about the first time we ever got together on the balcony? Is that what,
no, I'm talking about golf.
Golf.
I'm talking when you and I golfed together.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was still in the automotive industry.
Yeah, so Sam Gross, who's on our team now, was in the lending industry.
Yes.
And so like this whole idea was Sam was trying to give value to me, to give value to him, and he was like, Eric sells cars. People who buy cars need insurance.
In 2015, and Sam's like, you should come golf with us. I'm like, that's my day off. I don't have anything else to do. I love golf. And we went and played this super hard golf course, like Sam put us up to. And but kudos to Tyler, because Tyler joins the foursome. And
I don't golf.
I don't think you had golfed.
I maybe had never golfed. and
we get in the first tee, and I see Tyler swing like once or twice, and I think missed the ball twice on the first hole. And I've played the course. So I'm like, oh boy, this will be a long day for this fellow. And it was a long day, but we had a blast.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely wonderful.
It was crazy fun. You fast forward, that was back in like 2015. Yes. I'm guessing it's just but you fast forward 2 years. I exited the car industry. You'd already been in insurance for a year and a half with State Farm, and you were going to go independent.
Yep.
And I remember that whole connection, and I was trying to make connections with other people, in different industries, insurance and, loan officers, because I know all that's the ecosystem of the real estate world. And like, boom, who do I call?
Right.
Tyler Flatmoe, the guy who can't get it off the tee box on hole one
from
2 hours earlier. And we've been working together ever since.
That's absolutely right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that is a great example of signing up for something that's slightly out of your comfort zone, probably, all with good intentions. And 2 years later, it all kind of coming to fruition. And
for sure.
I've been working together for
I can't tell you, like, I wish I could see all of like the spidering connections that have existed through clients and through professional connections and the whole thing. Like it's just, that whole take the coffee, it'll open the door.
Yep.
It feels like you're spinning your wheels when you're first getting going. Even when you're established, it can feel like spinning your wheels where you're like, do I really need to go do this? But it's like, you do.
So many great things come out of some of the most like unpredictable networking connections or whatever, right? Okay, so you go independent.
Yep.
You start getting things going. Do you feel like now, if you fast forward, 5 years, and you do kind of look back, are there certain milestone events that were like, wow, that was a big change for me, my business?
Yeah, so I've been bent like from day one on scale. Like I don't want to be an insurance agent. I want to be a business owner. I'm very, very bent on that.
Yep.
And we've been very focused on that from the beginning. Most people are very good at being self-employed. They can create a little sandbox that they go play in, and they, are a business owner, but they just have created an ecosystem for them to work the 9 to 5 that they established.
Yeah, it's a good distinction. Yeah.
And I have been very interested and working every day to become a business owner, not just it runs parallel. It's not a mutually exclusive thing where it's like, hey, you can only be one or versus the other. Like I still sell policies, right? And it still is part of what I do. What was your original question? Sorry, I'm on a.
What were the milestones?
Yeah, milestones. Yeah. So milestones, like I started in July. From day one, I was absolutely beating on my now business partner. His name's Chris Schulenberg.
Yep.
He had a great corporate job, and I was like, dude, there's a model here. It's scalable. We can do this. I know that we can do this. come starve to death with me. It'll be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so it took me 6 months, but I got him to jump.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge milestone, was having him come and actually formally join me in business.
Yeah.
That was huge. Hiring our first salesperson was huge. And so that happened shortly thereafter. Hiring our first support person was huge, where it was all of a sudden, I'm not taking every policy change myself anymore, but there's like, the scalability of it. Yeah. Getting an office space for the first time. Like there's lots of fun like benchmarks that happen in business where it's like,
well, you guys started from very humble beginnings of just you got your call in. Did you start working out of your home first, or did you immediately get an office?
Yeah, no, I started in my bedroom that I grew up in, because I was like, I can't work from home. I don't want to work in a coffee shop. And I called my parents and I was like, my bedroom's empty. Can I come work out of my bedroom?
Crazy.
And I bought a laptop from Goodwill for $100. Like that's what I did. Because when you start scratch, that's what I did. Like you start with nothing. There's no accounts. There's no revenue. There's overhead. Like you got to pay licensing fees and software fees, and it's hunt kill every single day. Yep. And so it started extremely humble. Mm-hmm. And then when Chris and I started in business together, I was like, we should get an office somewhere. So we got.
You're like, unless you want to come to my parents' houses in my bedroom, we're gonna have to get an office space.
Actually, though, and so we got one office, and we both shared it, and we would take turns on the phone. Like, wow. It was he sat in one corner and I sat in the other corner, and we would all right, I'm gonna make the call, and I'd do it, and he'd just be pounding away, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna make my call, and we would just every other go for it. It was.
So this is the inspiring thing about people like you who clearly have a picture of where you want to go, and then can trace that back along the way and make hard decisions.
Correct.
To get yourself there.
Yes.
Right. And dude, I've seen, I remember you going through these seasons of, slowly kind of growing, slowly adding people, you're taking that next step up with the office, then bringing in your next sales guy, and you guys literally built a office in the office for him.
Oh my gosh,
a phone booth.
It was COVID era, and we hired another salesperson, and we only had 3. We had moved to a bigger suite. We only had 3 suites, and so we were like, what do we do? And I literally built it was. I think it came from you, the inspiration, because you had sent me a link of these WeWork style phone booths drop in, and I was like,
I can build that.
I looked at the price, it was $16,000, and I was like, I can build that.
I can build this.
Build it for $2,000.
Amazing.
And we just put it in the corner, and then
I remember visiting your
all
office.
day.
It was just crazy, right? It looks like the early days of Facebook, where you pop the garage open, and you're like, "What is happening in here?"
Yes.
What kind of what is happening?
Yes.
But all those things, right, were efforts to get you to where you are today, and that's reminded me of the Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant of moving in those directions of employee and then self-employed and then business owner, investor.
And it's super challenging as you take those steps, because you have to let go of processes, right? Mm-hmm. There's that, it's not I don't know if it's a formal rule, but I've heard it as if somebody can do it, there's different percentages that people use, but 50% or 60% or 70% is good as you, delegate, get it off your plate, right? And doing that is really challenging because it's your baby, right? It's how to do everything, every part of everything. Yep. I'm getting to this weird spot in business now where it's there's processes and things that are happening where I'm I legit don't know how to do that. They're like, hey, do you know how? I'm like, ask that. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to do that. Sorry.
Delegate. Bang,
it's nope, that's that person's responsibility. So yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. So you obviously had this opportunity within State Farm, right? And I think I remember you kind of telling me it was the analogy you used was the golden handcuffs, right? Great opportunities. They set you up with a lot of resources versus this decision to go independent, start from scratch, working out of mom's house.
Yep.
So why? Why do that? Because I think that's the biggest hurdle that people have a tough time with or get stuck in, because it's scary. That move. So I'm curious for you, because I know you went through it and now you're reaping the benefits, but why do that?
So any service-based business, right? Anybody that has repeat clientele, right? That's what I have, is I have people that buy a policy year over year over year from me, right? If you have, on my end of thing, we call them vendors, right? Our insurance companies. Like if I'm married to one, I have one option. Somebody comes to me and my option doesn't fit. What do? I say, sorry, man. My option doesn't fit. And then that's kind of the end of the conversation.
You should work with me because I'm great.
Right, but like, please, like I'm a really great guy, and I know it's stupid expensive, but like, come on, like I'm really awesome. Like your value prop is pretty weak, and like the value prop, like, oh, I'm a part of a big company or this or that. It's like, I've learned very, very deeply that people really don't give a rip who the name of the company is on the top of the piece of paper. They care who sold it to them, and they care that it does what they think it's going to do, right? And so, I knew that I wanted options for our customers, and I knew that we were going to be a greater value add in our parallel spheres if we had options for customers, and had that kind of lateral mobility. It's also a great thing for retaining clientele, because I can have a client that comes to me that's been my client for 3 or 4 years, and they say, hey, I got my renewal, and this went up, and it just, it maybe sometimes it is appropriate, and maybe it's justified for something that happened with them. But there's other times where it's like, you know what? Like, I agree that's out of line. Let's make a pivot, and we can take them out of one pocket and put them into the other. There's a lot of nuance on industry-specific stuff with the way in which companies pay. A lot of captive companies in general are performance-based. You get on a little treadmill and you run on their hamster wheel, and you make great money as long as you can move their product volume. It's not great for scaling business, because it is, what do you got to do? You got to push the ball back up the hill this year. And at the end of the year, your little performance plan starts over again, and let's push the ball back up the hill. And I didn't want that. And so there's a lot of reasons, but those are some of them.
That's cool. I mean, it's a value first effort too, right? It's a decision to make things a little bit tougher for yourself on the front end, but it's also one to position you for your clients,
correct,
as a step ahead.
That's right.
And I can attest to that, because you hold my policies, and there's been plenty of times over the last few years that, I mean, you can speak to this. I know the insurance world is, crazy
extremely
right
volatile
now. But with what one company is going to view risk one way, and the seasons are going to change, and we've moved my policies around for just better fits along the way, and that wouldn't have been the case had I been with.
That's correct.
One person. I would have wanted
the heartbreak conversation, if you're not in that, if you're not in the independent channel, is like, dude, I love working with you. I love you as a person. But like, company doesn't like you anymore, so sorry, man. What do we do? It's a weak position to grow from.
Okay, so now catch us full up to speed. Where are you at today? Give us a 30,000-foot view of where your business is at.
So we are a team of 10, including my business partner and I. So we've got 7, call them retail agents, right? We've got 7 agents that are selling policies all the time. And then we have got 2 full-time support people, and 1 kind of, she's full-time, but she kind of dances the line between sales support, kind of like maybe similar to like a transaction coordinator or like a loan processor in that sphere. And then she also will kind of jump in. She's kind of jack of all trades, utility player maybe would be a good way to say it. So that's our team size right now. I was just looking at it the other day. We just crossed like 4,000 households or something insured like that.
Unbelievable.
It's a lot of people when you start to think about like number of clientele. And that's growing by like thousands, like with an S, a year is our pace right now. And so like we're really, really moving the needle. And that comes from a number of things. It comes from phenomenal partnerships, people like you guys and your whole team. And we just, like, that has been how we have scaled, has been, I told my whole sales team, every single time I trained somebody in, I was like, it's force multiplier. You go find one person, sell one person insurance, great job, you made one sale. You go have one coffee meeting with a professional that has 100 clients. I mean, I've got lending partners that I've done in a year hundreds of transactions with, where it's just like, the value there is the return on time it's insane.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and then
totally.
that value can go back up the chain as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've built really good partnerships with Parallel Spheres. We've really invested into technology. There is so much available. Like, it is unlike any other time that has ever existed in history.
Are you using AI?
Yes.
That's gonna be the headline of this podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And
How do you use AI in your
we're leaning deeper into it.
You
So
are.
yeah, so we use it on just like the generative like copy end of things.
Yeah.
Nobody should write copy. I don't believe anybody should write copy.
Yeah.
You should take what you want to do, put it in, have it spit it out, piece it up to what you
Make a
need
little
it to be.
refinement to
but
it.
like sitting down and be like, I'm gonna draft like a nice onboarding email. It's like,
No.
nope.
Let the robots do
You
it.
shouldn't do that. Our vendors are extensively using AI.
Okay.
They're using it on scoring properties. So like we'll get to clients like, hey, you got a crap roof. Like, we can see it through aerial images that are available.
Wow.
Like, you're gonna get worse rated based off of information that's machine learned into their actuarial rating tables. I mean, it's going to change the way insurance is bought and sold, how companies rate. It's used in CRMs. It's coming more and more like a part of that process.
Yeah.
Predictive on, I mean, really, truly, like, it's going to permeate every aspect of the industry.
Wow.
And so some of it's
predictive, like you're talking like predictive policy writing. So like people who are more prone to likely to making a claim.
yeah. So that's already happening on the actuarial side of things with like.
Okay.
That I think type of stuff has been happening for a while, but like it's even going to start to get into like behavioral stuff, like this person is gonna whatever, like shop there, be more of a chronic shopper, or this person is going to be, based off their tendencies or click throughs, and all of that stuff is like your interaction with your email, and like all of that stuff is visible. You can track all of it, and data is already king in every single industry, and is going to continue to become even more prominent in that. And so, so tech stack we've just gone deep into, and we're still working on, and it kind of feels like this thing that will never be done. It's a dangerous thing because it's like shiny object, like you would not believe, because there's a million pieces of tech that can come into it, and it's like, okay, it can do X, Y, Z. Does it move our needle? Does it help our process? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
But there have been pieces of tech that have been introduced into our process that have like trajectory changing. It's small, it's cheap, you implement it across the team, and it's like, how did we do business without this?
Yeah.
And then the last thing that's helped us grow, the agents that are on our team are the best agents in the Twin Cities. Like,
awesome.
They're way better than me. Like, I like to think I'm good at my process and good at what I do. My team beats the snot out of me.
Nice.
And so I want to surround myself with people that are way, way better.
Yeah.
And that's when I know I'm winning, is when it's like, you guys take me to the cleaner month over month. Like, it's a huge win, and then hopefully our value prop back is that we're creating an ecosystem of support and technology and process and training that they're making great money and doing a great time. So
Is your goal to keep growing?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give us a quick foresight into the future for you.
That's a complex question.
All right. Type it into AI, see what your
Yes.
business model is going to be.
See what the business model is going to be. I've got a lot of goals for the future. A tactile goal that I want to do in the next 3 years, I want to acquire. I want to buy another agency.
Cool.
I think that the industry as a whole is absolutely prime for transition. The average age of the principal, which is the formal language of someone like me, the owner, is like 58. They're calling it the silver tsunami is coming our way. If you look at like,
somebody else told me that term recently,
Yes.
and I haven't been able to remember it for like the last 2 months. Silver tsunami.
Yeah, silver tsunami, and it's on the retail side, so it's on like the agency ownership side of things. It's also on the vendor side, on the company side of things. All of your C-level, all of your board of directors, all of your all of the big heavy hitters that are the people that are making the decisions that are affecting one of the pillars of the economy, which is insurance, right? They're all aging out.
Yeah.
Like, they're all gonna die, they're all gonna retire, it's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah. Were you the one telling me about the silver tsunami and the trades? Like all these like HVAC companies.
Yeah, you want to know what's going to get paid? Like, is guys installing your furnace going to be making $400,000 a year because he's installing your furnace?
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's a huge.
Yeah.
There's so much wealth in the boomer generation
Yes.
because of these businesses they've built over 40 years, 50
Yes.
years, whether it's books of insurance business or these small kind of like HVAC companies or whatever. And we've this next wave of generation hasn't really touched some of those types of things. Insurance, appraisal companies. This is specific to like real estate, but where are those going to go?
It's interesting
It's a
too
good
because
opportunity.
there's kind of like a camp here that says, hey, it's going to prime your industry for disruption.
Yeah.
It's all going to get automated. You're not going to have a job. You won't like be involved in the process. There have been a large handful of tech direct-to-consumer insurance style companies that have miserably flopped. A lot of these companies that you just open up your phone and buy insurance, the way that they work is that you like put your information in and then you select coverages, right?
Yep.
And you see price go up and down based off of how you answer the question.
Yeah.
There's they call it field underwriting. There's not an agent critically looking and saying, what's your actual exposure? Are you telling me the truth? I'm asking critical questions.
Yep.
And they call it a combined ratio. It's a measurement of the losses paid out versus the premiums brought in. A lot of these tech companies, these kind of like AI driven like disruptors that are going to eliminate us right from the picture, are rocking like 7, 8, 900% combined ratios where it's like you're going to be insolvent like that.
Yeah.
And then it's been comical because these companies have graduated towards being sold through the independent agency channel.
Totally.
Because they're like, we need you.
What's a good example of using tech to a disadvantage, right? And now you guys outsourcing some tech-related things to all the non-important things or the things that can be automated, but keeping yourself positioned in the place that's the most necessary.
Right. So when we look at that, we have process mapped our entire transaction process from the time you introduce me to a client to the time that they have a policy placed in force. It's process mapped and it's the same through the entire agency. It is what's step one, what's step two, how do we do it? If we miss on that call, how do we get it? Like what's the whole process? And there's technology implemented at most of those steps in the process to make it feel like buying from Amazon, like click, 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 done. I want that feeling of ease of access to purchasing through you. And I want that to be readily available. And so we've offloaded a lot of a great example is just copy. It's not rocket science. Like quick parts in Outlook. When you're buying a house and you want to buy home and auto insurance through me, your decision points are by and large the exact same across all people, right? It's like, what do we need to consider? What's it gonna be? And so that copy, like, why would I write an email every time I send a proposal?
Totally.
It should be the same.
Yeah.
You should craft it so it's compelling, it drives toward the end result.
Yeah.
And you should get it so absolutely perfect that copy is the same and used the same. And so we've taken like that aspect and that approach where it totally feels like I wrote the email. You don't know that I didn't write the email. I spent 1/4 of 1 second sending you your information versus like 7 or 10 or 15 minutes like keying out this wonderful little proposal that they may open, they might not open. Like it's a total waste. And so we've leveraged technology hard in that way.
Good.
Yeah.
I have to laugh at some of like the tech flubs that I've seen lately.
Yeah.
There was one, and I think this is probably the biggest flub of all time. It's actually made me like gun shy about using some tech because I had some people making, I was on an automated email list for actually another real estate company. And it was like a year-end post that was like a gratitude post about like how grateful people were about the whole thing. And it said, it's something to the effect of like, we're like so grateful for you, and which is why we're excited about giving back to, and then it said in parentheses, state charity here. end parentheses, and I'm like, oh boy.
There's a reason why you test
That
anything
is
that's mass.
bad. And then I remember sitting reading close to like Christmas
Yeah.
or around family. I'm like, wow. And I started telling like people in my family, and then I'm like, I wonder if they'll respond to this. And literally 3 minutes later, I get a second email, and it has like some other company, or actually I had like something deleted from it and like something replaced in there. And I'm like, oh yeah.
There you
yeah,
go.
you can tell this is just like copy paste, or like somebody just sent it out, didn't really proofread.
Yeah, it's
You gotta
tough
be careful.
stuff. Yeah.
Certain things are great, and then you guys still take one extra step.
Yes.
Yeah. But, well, let's move in the direction towards freedom. That's what we're chasing after.
Yes.
So, what are things that have worked for you in business and in life as you also? And I know you care a lot about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You care about spending time with your family. You guys have 4 little ones now.
Yes, we do.
Which is wild to think.
Oh my gosh.
You guys have 14 plus acres. You got a little farm.
Yep.
You have a miniature horse like little Sebastian.
Little Sebastian.
Which was
that's
the
right.
best part of a transaction we've ever had.
Yeah, that's right. Negotiate the mini ponies.
You
It's
get a
real
mini
thing.
pony included in your house, it's a big win.
That's a big one.
So what things have worked for you lately in business and life? And maybe even the opposite of that question, like what's been really hard about certain things?
Yeah, things that like one of our core values in our business, like agency wide, is freedom. We do not live to work; we work to live, and work is something that, and business and ownership is something that supports life outside. I tell everybody a secret. I don't give a rip about insurance. Like it's just my widget.
Yeah.
Just like houses are your guys' widget, or
Yeah.
sandwiches is Chick-fil-A's widget, or whatever. Like it's just the thing that enables a platform to provide for other awesome families, a platform to live a life that we want to live, a great big life, right? Platform to give like we never thought we'd be able to. Like there's so much freedom that comes from being successful in business. And so just some tangible ways that like we are working on chasing that is, not something that we're striving towards is eventually not working on Fridays, just taking Fridays off completely. I'm not there yet. It's something that I'm working on.
Nice goal.
It's a nice goal. I think it's a totally achievable goal. That's something like Chris and I were talking the other day, and it was like, dude, next year, like that's happening for both of us. Like, let's just not be available.
See what happens.
Yeah, see what happens. Like,
Yeah.
hey, if it's not quite as good, like,
Yeah.
but you've got more space in life to do
Totally.
the other thing, right? My wife has been extraordinarily gracious to me and allowed me to train for a half Ironman, and so that's coming up in 3 weeks. So
That's
a lot
something
of
I'll probably never say in my lifetime.
that's fair.
I haven't even trained for it.
Yeah.
I'm just not built for it. Or I just don't have the capacity in my head.
That's not
to
true.
think-
Anybody can do it. I am
No,
not
these
built
knees
for
they don't hold up like they used to.
Yeah. But that's been a way that we've been chasing freedom, just physically, is just to like say, hey, I'm gonna take and be intentional with this, and
awesome.
We try and take that family time every week and just be dedicated and say, hey, like, no, we're gonna clear time on our calendar and let this be a thing.
Yeah.
And so each winter we go away. That's intentional. We've done it for 5 years now, and it's gonna be forever. Like
That's so cool.
It's that time in February, March when we take about a month and we go to Arizona. It's just like you work and do the things, like the minimal amount that you have to keep the plate spinning.
Yeah.
And then it's seasonally like a little bit of a slower time, and so it makes sense in my business to do it in that way.
Yep.
But it's just the life that, like, the dividend that produces relationally and memories with the kids, and go exercise outside and soak up some vitamin D. Like it's life-giving.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, travel and time away is something that Danielle and I talk about often, because especially in Minnesota, we have all these amazing seasons, but we got long winters.
Do have long winters.
It's just part of the thing, and being able to escape and reinvest into your life, reinvest into your marriage, those are very priceless things, and it gets hard to do. Life
does.
gets very busy, but I think when you do start to have the perspective or the vision as you run these businesses, to say, hey, we can actually decide to, sacrifice a little bit of time on the front end for the business, but it's enough to keep the plates going. That is a dividend that will pay,
One of the most challenging aspects about being in business is that you write the script. You like, success is self-defined.
Yeah.
And so it
Totally
has
agree
a
with that.
funny way of being elusive, and you knock down the milestone that you chase forever, and then you're like, okay, what, like, next one? Like, you don't even take a second to stop and smell the flowers. It's just like, because when you are employed and you have a set of duties and somebody is coming to you saying, this is what success means, it's very easy to, like, find that satisfaction and, like, I did a good job. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I can kind of leave it here. And, like, the plague of the entrepreneur is that the amount of money you make, is that good or bad? Like, what you brought in last year. Who knows? Like, you decide.
Relative,
it's relative to your value and what you're doing. And so, if not carefully guarded, it goes away forever.
Well,
you know?
And I think it's a huge struggle specifically for the entrepreneur who is built towards most likely achievement-based goals.
Yes.
And so there's always kind of that next
There's always more
accolade to get to. And there's always a financial piece. It's like there's probably always more out there. And you fall prey to it often as an entrepreneur because you look around at peers who are seemingly wired like you, and you think, oh, they're doing it, I can do it, why am I not doing it?
Yes.
But you don't know what's happening behind the curtain. You don't know what difficulties they aren't going through. And their definition of success and freedom could be way different than yours.
For sure.
And so that's where this comparison being the thief of joy is such a sentiment in our world, where it's like you really have to protect yourself and guard yourself against the comparison game. It's super easy to fall into.
It's super easy to fall into. The Bible says that godliness with contentment is great gain, right? And that contentment piece, right? Like, everybody can be like, oh, like, what's it mean to be godly? Like, we can kind of quantify that pretty easily. Like, that's not hard. Contentment is great gain. I mean, it'll just absolutely undo you if you sit there and wrestle with it, because it's like, what is, and you get, I don't know if you guys struggle with this, but, like, as you're in that hockey stick curve, right, up in growth and income and opportunity, and like, money perpetuates money, it perpetuates more opportunity. I forget, like just immediately. I remember crossing thresholds where it's like, you have that check in that month where you're like, that's stupid. Like, that's like, I've never in my wildest dreams I thought that would happen. And then next year it's like, wait, what? It becomes a non-event, and you write it off immediately. Maybe I'm super carnal, but, like, I struggle with that. Like, it's just that idea that it, like, it's like, it's like sand running through your hands. Like, you just get it in there, and it's just, it's out. And, like, the more, I was just talking to my wife about this struggle, but it's like, in life right now, like today, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm fitter than I've ever been with the training. I appreciate it. I'm fitter than I've ever been. The business is just cruising. I've got a wonderful family, the picturesque life on the farm, all the check boxes up and down the ballot. And I've struggled with just discontentedness harder than I ever have. And it's a really, really challenging thing to, like, wrestle through and be like, all right, like, where's my worth? What's my value? Because we're writing the script here, and it's a deeply challenging thing that, it's,
thanks for sharing that.
It's a blessing and a curse.
It's not easy to even have that self-awareness and to, kind of share that.
For sure.
Appreciate the authenticity to it. But, as you continue to propel forward, in your business and life, and you guys are chasing after exciting things, we're excited to continue partnering with you on our end, and you guys obviously do a great job. If there's anything that you can share with anybody who's going to be listening and watching, and what are pieces of advice? If there's anything, any strong takeaways of you saying, I've kind of gone through that. There's one thing I could kind of share with you, or multiple things I would share or pass along. This is what I want you to know.
It's hard to achieve sometimes because it's not something that's tangible. Like, I can just go buy this book and do this thing. But finding other people that are in a similar life season as you, we've got just some close friends that, you know, like own very successful businesses and have kids that are our same kids' age. And like, you can call up and have that, like, there's part of that I struggle with sometimes with relatability with others, where you're like, you can call up Joe Blow that you know from church or the gym or whatever, and it's like, you don't get it. Yeah. You don't know.
Yep.
And having that kind of like surrounding yourself with people that have been there, that are walking through it, it allows them to keep you on the ground and keep you level, because they'll knock your head off if you start getting, you know, out of line, and like they'll challenge you and be like, really, like that doesn't really line up with what you told me that you want your life to be, or who you want to be about. So that's a really kind of one that's been very deeply impactful. Like I said, I love podcasts. I do love books. I got books on books on books on books, but business owners need to read Traction. I know y'all are a big fan of Traction.
EOS.
Mr. Schrock is a big fan of Traction.
Yep.
Traction's a great book. The whole thing's the real deal. I know it's cliche, Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life.
Yeah.
It did. It's the very first book I ever read in this space, and it opened my eyes.
It's got to be the most recommended business book of all time.
Absolutely.
You see it pop up on like every channel all the time. It's like, it's kind of staple because it's amazing.
I forget who writes this one. Profit First is a great book as well. I don't remember who writes it. I just pulled it off my shelf the other day, and it's the plague of scaling a business is there's margin, put it back in. We have margin, double down. And then all of a sudden you're just growing this top line and you're like, but my margin, like where's it at? And so that's also really just healthy one for frame of mind.
Cool. Yeah. I like it. Any other major podcasts you'd recommend? Anything that you're listening to, whether it's business or anything else you've just been loving?
A podcast it's industry specific, so it's going to make most people's eyes glaze. But there's one called The Insurance Guys that is 100% industry specific. But if anybody's interested in the industry,
there you go.
It's the resource.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, we want to at least open it up for Q&A. We've only got a couple people here, but is there anything specifically that you guys would want to ask Tyler? Don't have to, but anything specifically you want to pick his brain on?
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit, Tyler, but what are your general feelings about the insurance industry right now? I know a lot of companies are struggling to cover policies, re-up current policies, commercial
is getting destroyed. Yes.
Let me repeat the question just because I got the mic, but Mitch asked, what's your current feeling on the industry, like insurance industry with policies going up, and there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so I'm going to split the question on personal lines and commercial lines because it's two separate questions. On the personal line side of things, in Minnesota, we had like 10 years in a row of underwriting profit, meaning that companies were making money. Most people forget this. Insurance companies are for profit. They're not a nonprofit. Everybody's like the big bad insurance company. Like if they're not making money, like stuff's going to change. And so we had 10 years in a row of underwriting profit. 22 and 23 wiped out those 10 years of profit and put $1 billion with a B dollar deficit in these companies' hands. And so the problem with insurance is that it's a government regulated industry. And so companies need to raise rate to recover from the losses that they've taken, but that is capped in the state of Minnesota at 24.5% without going to what's called special appeals court. No company does that because no company wins. And so companies are throttled at increases on their renewals of 24.5%, which sounds like a butt ton of money for a policy to go up. Yeah. But if you're behind to the tune of billions of dollars, it's not enough. And so companies are taking decisive action on getting out of market sectors. This is kind of flipping over on the commercial line side of things. We've seen that happen on like habitational, like crazy apartment buildings are getting murdered right now. Entire companies that have been the player in that space have completely exited. Like townhome complexes are just getting eviscerated. We've seen renewals go from 20 grand to 120 grand, and they're like, you got a renewal, good for you. And so it's this is all also complex because on the on the vendor side of things, insurance companies buy insurance. It's called a reinsurance. And so they basically take like a block of premium and say, hey, if we have X amount of losses, that's gonna now transfer the risk off our books onto the reinsurance company's books. Those companies have taken a bath. And so all of this coupled with contractor price gouging is out of control in Minnesota. Roofs should not cost what they cost. The Attorney General's office has been cracking down on contractors, pulling them at random, saying justify your cost. It's been the Wild West, guys. And so
Sounds like these insurance companies went and had great 10 years, bought some white Mercedes, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we got some losses. I got a white Mercedes now.
yeah, it's a deeply complex thing, and so that's kind of a jumbled brain dump on some of the different things that have been happening. On the personal line side of things, I'm very bullish. It's been very hard. Rates gone up a ton. It's been extremely restrictive. Like companies like in our portfolio have been like, we're done. Like you can't write any more business with us until this thing cools off, until we recoup. And so Q1 was profitable. If we can make it through the summer without catastrophic losses, not like claims happen, but like without like, hey, the metro got ripped in half by a hailstorm. Companies are going to start coming back online. They're going to get hungry to buy buy premium, excuse me. And I think it'll loosen up a little bit. Like lesser's risk, buildings like this, habitational, townhomes, apartments is going to bleed for a long time. And it's going to take a long time for it to come back.
Are those then the consumers who are occupying those spaces also going to feel the most amount?
So like somebody who lives in like a townhome complex, it's not so much them that's going to get, actually that cost gets passed down through HOA fees. And so it's going to be interesting to see somebody that bought a house at a certain payment with a $300 HOA,
right?
And that all of a sudden the company has to buy a $100,000 policy when it was a $20,000 policy in a 48 unit complex. Now $80,000 is being divided by 48 policy. You're going to see people get priced out of their townhome on HOA dues, which is wild. And that just kind of popped on me right now.
It's a bummer because those are like most of the time. It's an economic decision to go townhome, and it's a very budget-friendly, consistent thing because they're not liable for bigger out-of-pocket expenses, which is nice from a budgeting standpoint. But that's a bummer to think about.
The other
all
thing
of a sudden
that's
that
wild is like we have seen this because our phones have just been blown up with this type of business. But like so many townhomes are abysmally run, have absolutely nothing in reserves. The board is just, George and Sally. And you know what I'm saying? like, and it's like, hey, we don't have any budget for a deductible. We don't have any budget for a roof. We don't have and so then these economically needing to be more conservative people buy these houses, and it's like, you can end up just
that's gonna be tough
underwater. And so, it's affordability is part of the crisis, but placeability on some of that stuff is becoming the other thing that's hard. Where like, we're turning deals away where it's like, hey, we have more market access than like probably anybody. It's nothing. Like it's, they just won't write. And I'm really sorry that that's going on for you. It's wild. So,
Second part to that question. So, obviously insurance has been like this in the last 24 months.
Yes.
18 months. What do you project over the next 5 years if you had?
So it's interesting because it's a threshold that you walk over. You never go back. So like we just had one in the office, $450,000 house. Part of this was due to a poorer credit score, so poor clientele financial health, but $450,000 single family home, $4,200 was the home insurance premium. Bundled with auto, deductible was $10,000.
Wow.
This sounds like, oh wow, you guys have a bad issue going. It's like, this is the crap that we see going on. Our average household case was like $2,800, $3,000 when we, his jaw's on the floor over there, $2,800, $3,000 when we got into the business. Our average household case right now is like $4,800.
Wow.
Which from a business perspective, I'm like, that's great, it's super. From the consumer perspective, it's like, this is tough. We had our first deal, and I'm just airing out their dirty laundry right now.
That's great.
We had our first deal this year So something that happens in the lending side of things is lenders do a bad job and they underquote for expenses, trying to get the edge and saying, work with me, I want the deal.
Yep.
And they send the deal to your desk and they're like, you have $110 a month spent on home insurance, go get them. And it's like, hey bud, this ain't gonna fly. We
can't find even good coverage.
We were
either.
very aggressive with getting in front of all of our lending partners. So when this thing started unraveling, where it was like, if you want your loan to close, you have to give us $250, $275, $300 a month. Like it has to be there.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna get egg on your face. We're gonna look bad. Your client's not gonna be happy. But we had our first deal where it was like they sent the deal over. They quoted it way too skinny. I mean, we turned over every rock. Every company pulled every string, every deductible option, stripped all the coverage back to get it as like to try and just help this thing get to closing and then maybe change some of those things back and add those coverages back in after closing. And it couldn't do it. And it was like, hey man, I'm really, really sorry. And they looked everywhere. They called everybody else and the deal didn't close.
Wow.
And it's like, that type of stuff is going on.
Over insurance.
Over probably a deal they should have never been buying in the first place. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the insurance cost.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah. So it's wild. And so my prospectus to answer your question, what's going to happen in the industry in the next 5 years is that it's a threshold that's been stepped over. Cost will never come back down. It's when you get your cost basis up, like what's going to happen with property taxes? Are they going to be higher or lower? They're never going to be, oh, you're $5,000. Like here, you can just pay $3,000 now for your property taxes.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. And so you've established a new baseline, which is kind of a crazy thought to even start to think about, because as you start to think about this real estate question as a whole of affordability of homes is going down aggressively.
Yes.
Your interest rates are high, your insurance rates are high. Those things, I guess I don't know what's going to happen with interest rates, but I'm not anticipating the bottom's going to fall out of them, right? And like we were talking about before the podcast, if they do, house prices are going to explode. More than they already have. And so the first-time home buyer, I don't know if you guys have a different opinion about this, but I don't think there's ever been a harder time for a first-time home buyer to buy a house than it is right now. Your folks that bought 5, 6, 7 years ago are reaping a wonderful upside. I mean, your folks that got into buying houses when we bought houses, it's just like, how did it do this for me?
Totally.
And your folks that are like, I just graduated college and I'm making $42,000 a year and I'm gonna go buy a house. It's like,
it's hard.
Good luck.
Yeah, they're coming out. I mean, people know we're in this affordability crisis, and so there's all these programs and stuff coming out. But it's like, these grant programs or down payment assistance programs just to make housing more affordable. And because we're in a state where it's so hard to qualify to buy anything that doesn't need a lot of work, right? So maybe yes, you get to the closing table, but then then what do you do once you're actually in the house and it needs another $30,000 worth of work?
Right.
That's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, and that's happening on the insurance side of thing as well, where it's like deductibles have gone so crazy, where people are getting percentage deductibles on renewals, where like, I was just talking to a contractor friend of mine that does like storm remediation, does like exterior remodeling for hail damage. And they're like, where the payment used to be all insurance is now like half insurance or a quarter insurance. And they're having to go get financing partners to allow people to eat, because like, who's got $30,000 to go rewrap their house?
Right.
Most people don't. And so it's becoming this interesting dichotomy of like, let's just go stack on more debt, and it's interesting. So
it's tough. Good question. Thanks, Mitch.
It's probably a good word for us on the investment side of like, make sure we're underwriting investment properties with updated perspective.
Correct. Yeah, we have been sticker shocking a lot of current clientele on renewal. We just had one duplex out-of-state investor, lives in California, probably came from one of you guys, and $1,800, and her policy renewed $6,400. We found her a counter option at $3,400, and she's just totally flabbergasted. Like, how could this possibly cost this much? And it's like, lady, you're lucky. Like, you're lucky we even can place you. That we, it's
Woof.
Yeah, so we've seen that as well a lot in hey, we're buying the investment property, hey, we're making it happen, and it's like, hey, especially on bigger stuff, on anything that's more than 4 units, like they come to us and they're like, we got the pro forma.
Yeah.
Insurance is $6,000, and it's like, try 12, try 18, try, let's see if we can get it at all. Again, that's not a symptom of like our market access or anybody else. It's like, call up any of the other players in our space and like, they'll tell you to pound sand. They'll say, hey, sorry, we stopped writing that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Tim, too. Of like, as realtors and other investors, we've built out spreadsheets, we've built out pro formas for properties based on size and all that stuff.
Throw a 0.5% for the insurance cost or whatever.
They've changed.
It has changed.
Pro formas have to change.
And it's crazy because the change is dramatic between 23 and 24 pricing. So we see like, they're like, oh yeah, like a great example is somebody that like has a July renewal, right? You're buying a house for the investor. They send out like, hey, here's my insurance information. This is what I paid from July of 23 to July of 24. You glance at it, you're like, okay, it's $2,000 or whatever it is for the house. And then it's like, yeah, but 24 to 25 pricing, you're gonna be 3,500 or 3,800. Like it's just the way it's gonna work. It's how that cookie crumbles. And so people are missing it, and then they get into the deal and they're like, why isn't this thing cash flowing? And then it's like, you undershot on expenses. And so
it's good to know.
One quick question. So being that your industry is so like residual based, what are things that you guys do for client retention that maybe like set you apart?
Yeah, that's a great idea, or a great question. So the question was client retention. What are we doing for client retention in a uncharted territory type of year like we're in right now with rate just exploding? What my office does is we look and run a macro standard deviation across the market sector. And so we look at that and we say, great, all of the accounts across the whole agency that are renewing in the month of May, we run it, we calculate the rate deviation, and we say, great, if standard rate deviation is 13% in a year, we're gonna add a buffer. We're gonna look at it and say, great, we're gonna add a 3 or 4% buffer. And then anybody that's outside that, this is just a hypothetical example, but like outside that 17% window, I'm gonna get a proactive touch. Like we're gonna call them up and say, hey, we're paying attention. Like you don't have to do it for you. Like we do this for you, and we monitor your rate and we say, hey, like this is out of line in our opinion. You don't have to experience the sticker shock and then give us the call. And so that's something that we do. That's kind of like the most practical thing. We tell our clients all the time, like we're literally a phone call away. If there's ever anything, just call us. You don't have to call a 1-800 number and sit on hold. You call Gracie or Lauren or Courtney, and then they say, oh, let's get you on Tyler's calendar or Sam's calendar. We are a small local shop, and we run big business on a small local shop model, if that makes sense. So like anybody who calls in gets that feeling of like, oh, Gracie's gonna help me with my bill, or my team member's gonna help me and do this, and have that kind of like, I'm not part of a cog. I'm not just So we work on all that sort of stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything else? Good. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate all the insight, the authenticity.
It's an honor to be here.
So we appreciate you, and keep rocking and rolling.
Keep rocking and rolling. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, dude.
It's just a